how was the experience of like joining this indigenous community?
The original reasons we came down here were really very personal. I was very interested in the land here, and I returned. I made a long trip here in the 2000s, and I returned with Loni again in 2008 for 6 months, and then we moved down here 2012. Our opportunity to work with Luis in the Pastaza was also sort of created from friendships I had in Eugene, Oregon, and we sort of manifested an ability to go out and see Luis, and at first just get a taste of what they were doing. Obviously, from the Western lens, the Amazon has a very sort of mysterious and often poorly defined reality. Once you get into these communities, the whole savage element, the whole reality that these are amazing family groups. They function in very special ways. Their kids and their grandmas, everyone participates. What you see is an amazing group of people who work together brilliantly. And that would probably be what sort of ignited our interest when we first went there. I would admit, I'm sure you would too, Dave, that it was kind of, I don't know, unsure when we arrived. Yeah, it was intimidating. You know, you have these people, their faces are all painted, you're deep in the Amazon. It's a very different scene. There's no Caucasian folks there at all. It's a very different group of people. They cruise around barefooted. They eat off the land. But they're also very inspiring. And once you realize how huge their hearts are and how kind they are, our interest in the project grew from there. And as we continued to return, we were living in the mountains, which was a good situation as well. We continued to return and we started doing projects in these communities. There was so much need, and there still is. We're still in that same mindset. Projects need to continue in these communities, basically because of many reasons. They're basically forgotten about. So the resources they have with the Western world's capitalism, which is an aggressive totalitarian capitalism, it makes it very difficult for them to catch up and even remotely get ahead based on the way that they live. Obviously, the resources they have, the Chinese and the Americans and other countries want: the water, the trees, the petroleum. This is a famous story now. So their ability to keep up was clear. So we started working with these leaders in different communities, mainly Luis Quash, but the other communities in the film. How can we help here? What projects can we do? Schools need help. Plumbing needs help. There is all sorts of ideas with agriculture, which we're still working on. So we started finding funding, returning back to these communities with resources, materials, roofing, nails, lumber, and we started working together on these projects that they found important. So really our life in these communities is basic. Most of the things we did were very basic things, but they were very useful because everybody gets a piece of it. In these communities, very different than the West, you know, especially from New York, where people are very individualistic.
Yes.
These communities, everybody operates together. You don't go anywhere by yourself. We continually observed how the kids run off early in the morning. They come back at lunch, they leave again. They all manage each other, running around the jungle where it's fairly dangerous, and their parents don't sweat it at all. We were very like, wow, those kids are really epic kids. They're just running around, killing it, jumping off trees, nearly killing each other. But they have this freedom, and that freedom is intoxicating. I think probably all the things that Schwar brought that I really enjoyed is they're so free. They do what they want, when they want. They don't stress out at all. There's very little technology. There's no texting, none of that. So you're really in a raw, wild forest that has, of course, a huge definition. The Amazon is a huge sort of context. Many people kind of know anything about it. So those projects became part of our relationship with these communities. So we started filming these people and these projects. And that's how the film got its birth. But the whole process, and to this day, is about working on projects to continue to move, advance forward these folks, because they literally have such little resources.
Yeah. Yeah, but I find it, yesterday I was talking to a friend from Mexico, and we were talking, we're both theater people, right? We grew up in the theater, and theater in Mexico, well, in a lot of places in the world, when theater is not a mass production,
Right.
it is a very collective effort. And I remember that when we studied together, we really built everything. We built the backstage. We helped the people, the technicians. We learned how to do the lights, everything, right? And nobody, like, we treated, once we started working as a professional, we had like this code, this secret code, that the crew or the backstage people were as precious as the performers, because without them, the machine of the theater doesn't work, right? So, and now that, since I moved to the United States, that's not to criticize, but you're right, the society is very individualistic oriented. Everything is goal oriented, transactional. Just right to the goal. Like, what are you gonna achieve? What are you gonna, and they forget about the process. They forget about the little steps that a person took to get where a person is. And they forget sometimes that it takes a village to do anything.
I like your example of theater. I've worked in film and have done some acting, and we worked on small productions where we did what you're talking about. Your example is much better. I think theater is a great example, though. That is a community that works together. If you want to create something special and artistic and have a power, you need to know what you're doing. And in many ways, when you have this individualistic society, you lose all that texture. I think we forget that, trying to get there and win, because if you think about it, especially when you use the metaphor of New York, it's this Wall Street mentality. We're always building. We always got to get stronger. We always got to improve. We always have to make more money. These are honestly backwards views on honest community or theatrical or creative opportunity. Those should be the last things you care about. And when you get into sort of a maze where you're constantly doing that, you forget that the process is the best part. The most fun is having with what they call a minga. A minga is a very indigenous experience where people get together, they work for free, God forbid, and everybody does a project that everyone's decided. Usually it's the elders, but everybody has a collective input. We also notice that, like you use as the example, or the staff, the folks working on the production on the other side of the camera, they're as important as those that are doing the play. Everybody has a chance to pipe in these Shuar communities. Another thing I really thought was, intelligent. There's not a voice overlooked. If someone wants to say, why don't we do this? Why don't we paint the wall white? Oh, all right, that's a good idea. Let's paint the wall white. They let that happen, where in the delegation of individualism, oh, your title doesn't give you the qualifications to tell me anything, dude. So why don't you zip it? That's what you get. And that's, I think, dismissing our opportunity to work together, which would do tremendous bounty of help to the US right now, where we don't seem to be working together very well at all. There is a lot to learn. And you started the preface of this, how we can get people to know about these indigenous populations. That's one of the things they can teach us. The ability to work together is what makes the life journey more enjoyable, the spiritual opportunity more accessible, and then the end result is worth working for. And we're not just here to get a paycheck. We're here to better our life. We're here to better our community. We're here to grow food, or whatever it is you're doing. It can be very basic stuff. So many times I think people in the university environment, they want to create the wheel. A lot of the projects that we did really were super boring and basic. It was more that we walked a long way through rivers, over mountains, climbed in trees, had all these adventures, saw snakes, saw animals, experienced places that we did not have control in. It was more that. And then the process of building what we were building, or fixing the roof on that school, or building a new bathroom, or talking about agriculture. It was those things that were rewarding, but it didn't fine point down to, here's the goal, here's what we're going to do. By 9 o'clock, we'll be there, blah, blah, blah. it was a very different approach. And frankly, since that's happened, our life has completely morphed to that schedule as well. One of the things we do here is live like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's a bonus we get.
It at the long term, it makes you happier, and it makes you, just, there is a shift in the spirituality that happens when you start, when you really understand that you don't need to rush everything, that it's really, I mean, I haven't got this particular experiences, but I did travel through all the Mayan route when I was younger. When I was
Nice.
17, in my school, I studied in a high school of arts, and it was for social arts and everything. And at the end of the whole high school, our teachers took us all to do the whole Mayan route, starting from the end of Tabasco until Guatemala and Belize. And we went in a bus, and we did all of that, and it was incredible. We went to this, at one point I remember we went to this very, very tiny Mayan community with Mayan descendants. Like, I could see the people, and I said, oh my God, these look exactly like the drawings of my ancestors, that I might be completely mixed because I look from Spain.
We're all mixed.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, these people look exactly like the codices, like the code of writing from the pyramids and everything. And they had a different way of just the feeling of their body, the feeling of how they move, how they interact. I remember they woke us up like at 5 a.m. and everybody was like, we need to wake up at 5 a.m. And I was like, well, we might learn something, And we woke up and we went to see like the wild forest of the toucans. And we saw hundreds and hundreds of toucans. But we were exactly at a certain, we had to be there a certain time. That's why we left before dawn. We crossed the jungle in the middle of the darkness with like flashlights. And then when the break of dawn happened, all of the toucans were like there, present. And it was like, it's humbling. It's humbling to become more of an observer, and like, just to embrace that you can learn so much in stillness and in silence and in just observing nature, than just producing, and then end up alone, or imagining that you spend your life to create transactions and then nothing about spirituality or anything. You're like, I mean, I'm taking it to the extreme, right?
No, you're not, because the real that you're saying, it matters. If we don't recognize that our consumption and the pace that we keep also works with this production mindset, we're forgetting that destroys that toucan forest. Because in the end, this production needs those trees. In the end, if we don't monitor how we behave with this type of very aggressive system that we all know, the three of us, we all know it, then we will take all of the beauty that is here, and beyond it being beautiful, there is a resource relationship necessary so that we survive here. Keeping in contact with that natural world benefits our physical existence. When we stop noticing that we are part of this planet, that we're no longer part of that toucan forest, then we stop living. This is the robotic transition that is dangerous when you overuse machinery, the screen, the technology. We see it even happening here, Tessie. It's really weird to watch little indigenous kids that would never, ever have phones. One of the kids has a phone. These are some of the new things we're seeing here. One of the reasons we like it here is because there's not much of that, but it's slowly creeping in. It has a very effective transfer, and we have to be incredibly mindful how we let that go down, because there is a very small window that people stare at and they forget about where they are. And if you forget about where you are, if a rhinoceros forgot about where it was, it would get attacked. In the world that we live in, If you forget about where you are, if a monkey forgot about it was in the jungle, oh, I want to be a dentist and stop worrying about being a monkey, then it would die. We have to remember that forgetting where we are is the most dangerous and illogical decision we could possibly ever make. This is the time when you have to know where you are. And that doesn't mean, oh, I'm in New York City, I'm in Los Angeles, I'm in Quito, I'm in Cartagena. It means I'm a being on a planet that breathes as air, as water, so I can survive here. These are gifts. These are gifts. And when you're out there in the Amazon, these gifts are obvious. So you stop saying, oh, I'm separate. I'm separate from New York. Oh, actually, I'm a part of something. I'm actually wanted here. This idea that I'm alone, which is obviously a big deal with social media, etc. People aren't alone. When you're with nature, you're always together. You have connection. And those validating connection opportunities, without them, I don't know how people survive, literally. It's a terrible concept to me to imagine people out there fighting tooth and nail through a screen. I figure if that's what it takes to be rich, then obviously that's not for me. That's terrible. So our connections, right, in nature, which what we did when we went to the Amazon, they give you more reasons to be here. The life that you have becomes far more important when you realize that there's a huge natural world that you're a part of. This is the most exciting possibility that could ever exist. All other things are secondary. Once that connection begins. And there's all kinds of stages of it. It depends how deep you want to go. We've chosen to go very deep. There's a lot of things we stopped doing because we're like, oh, I'm over it. I don't see that working. But others don't have that ability. Some people have mortgages and stuff. We don't have those bills. So we're able to go deeper. But if we don't do that, if we can't figure out how to get these stories into people's lives, I don't see how people can be happy. And what's the point of this if you're not having a happy journey? If it's just to consume, then something's wrong. Someone's reprogrammed your brain. And that's obviously illogical, because if you're going to do that, and everyone's going to do that, think about how many individuals can damage a little ecosystem if each individual is just taking for themselves and no one's working together to share what's there. That's a biological misfunction. There is no way we can survive with that sort of mentality. And if that continues, that's like a disease, that's a calcareous disease. If that continues, that's a dangerous place. And nobody really wants to see how that will play out, because for God's sake, you know, we need these resources. And just to add to it, we've been to Chiapas, we've been to Palenque and Chichen Itza, we've traveled through Tulum, we've been to that Mayan country, San Cristobal de las Casas. That place is sick. We love that place. Chiapas is awesome. The beaches there are sick. The mountains, they got mountains. That place has got everything. We'd move there. That place is brilliant. We really like Chiapas.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's very, you know, that obviously when you tell people, oh, have you gone to Mexico? It's like, yeah, I've been to Cancun, and you're like,
whatever.
I always find it hilarious, because it's like, well, okay, you haven't been to Mexico, right? You have been to a portion of, like, a photocopy of America in Mexico. But well, that's my point of view, right? But yeah, you're so right. Like, I think that the most terrible disease, or like the whole epidemics that we have in our planet, and you know, I'm not talking about the pandemic, is that we think that we're on top. We still have that naivety, or that narcissism, or that megalomania, or however you want to take it, as human beings, that we are the highest part of the chain. And we're not. Like, if we continue our ways, the planet is gonna reset itself, like it did with the dinosaurs. Like, something's gonna happen, something's gonna deregulate. It's already happening. And we'll just, you know, like, the earth is gonna, like, or heat up at some point that we're not gonna be able to survive, or it's gonna freeze until the point that we're not gonna survive, and then it's gonna start from zero. And it's going to continue. The planet is not going to implode or something. You know, we are going to be eradicated, and then the planet will recycle itself, because the earth thrives whether we like it or not. If you leave if you don't tend to your garden for 6 months, you'll see what nature can do. You know, it will take over, it will everything, and you say everything works together. And you know, like the fungi work together with the tree, they work together with the plants, they work together with the animals. And if the animals didn't transport the seeds, then that tree would die. You know, so it's just like we just need to really question ourselves, like really question ourselves, like what is important in life, how can we be better people, like how can we connect to other people and not become this like trendy fake version of a yogi hipster, whatever, that, oh yeah, I'm so zen. No, really, what are you doing? Like are you really aiming to connect, to make a difference, and not just pretend that you're part of a trend or someone that is a little bit more connected to nature, because their connection is more trendy and social media, and it's just a facade, it's just a superficial thing. And I feel like, well, you're not really spiritual, you're just trendy. So
I would submit that to this population, the idea of selfishness, which is something we all can understand, is actually an accurate way to live your life. You should know yourself. Mm-hmm. If you have a comprehension of yourself, then you can have the ability to touch and affect others in every way, including your business sense. You'll have a better skill set at that meeting. You'll nail it. But in the comprehension of self, there's real analysis, and that can cause a deeper, and there we go, with spiritual searching. That searching is going to require you to find your sources, which is nature, your air, your water, the basic stuff that is the biology of your existence. Eventually, you're going to have to go there and begin to comprehend it if you expect to know yourself. So in many ways, the self-pursuit is not bad. The way it's done now is terribly destructive. But if it's reprioritized and focused to a gain that gives you more skill of who you are, you're going to have to go out to nature. And when you spend time in nature in beautiful places, wherever those places may be, if you're lucky enough to be in an area where there's a lot of it, like we are, but we choose that. If you are lucky enough, you will want to save nature. You will want to protect what you have. It will make complete sense to you. And no longer will you be called an environmentalist or be trendy. It won't matter what you did on social media. It will make a personal stake in your selfless life. As you choose this, you're participating in the one thing you know exists. Everything else is an illusion, as we know. COVID should prove that. Everything that you thought would continue at a certain rate suddenly was changed, and much of it was confusing. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, in 1 year, all sorts of things happened we could never have imagined. No one could have guessed this. And as it went down, who had a map? Who had a guide? Who could give you any advice? Nobody. It seems like zero comprehension was really probably about the most reliable thing. If you want to tap into who you are, then you go to where you're from. And that's nature. That's the earth. So I think if we can, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to find forums. It's tough to find places to communicate. It's tough to get the message out. You wonder if people even care. It doesn't matter. If you really want to know yourself and you're really interested in this journey, you have to spend time in nature to do it. And eventually, you're going to want to do what we did, which is make an effort to protect it. These communities that we work with, as far as I see it, they're human beings living on the planet. They're the most dug in. They have the most to lose. So it's my job then to go and defend them, because they're the ones that are going to hold back the hardest against industrialists, because they have the most to lose. They live there. If I go talk to a bunch of college kids in Portland, Oregon, and say, yeah, rah, 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 Amazon, probably we're just going to rah, 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 Amazon, and maybe go do some canvassing or something and get some money. But we're not going to do anything substantial that's going to stop that tractor. That's, I think, why we started going there. And then it does end up being that you get so much out of it. These people are now part of our family. The way that we see ourselves, we see with them. There's been some significant events that have happened during the journey that changed the way I have thought about how I'm on this planet and what the responsibility is. So no matter where I am in America or South America or Africa, I have the same memory that goes with me. What's my job here? What am I really doing here? and how can I facilitate pursuit of myself, the knowledge of myself, the comprehension of who I am, and how can I do that in nature so that that knowledge is accurate, useful, pragmatic, gains me results, and allows a better, happier life, where the word selfish is a word, the word spiritual is a word, but the connection of both is possible without maybe the words, just the sense that, oh yeah, I'm figuring this out. The confusion's going away. I don't need those pills anymore for my depression. I'm not so addicted to people's attention. I don't need people to like me in order to like myself. There's a lot of things that help us a lot better, move us forward a lot better than just being constantly contacting with people on social media, blah, 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 blah. This can really open up a lot. And I think in the end, all of us want that. It's just risky. It's just risky territory.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Is the unknown? It's like in the fairy tales, like don't go to the forest because the forest is the unknown, and then you end up realizing when you do the things that you do, for example, the explorations and everything, you end up knowing that a haunted castle can be more scary than an open forest, right? It's just, but that's the way I see it. Like I'm more afraid of sometimes the human distortion and the destruction that sometimes we generate as a race, that than what you encounter in the forest, because the animals and the animal kingdom, if they're okay and if they're thriving, they're just gonna see you and they're gonna be like, okay, well, this is another creature there, I'm just gonna move on my way, right? Yeah, and it's
another thing. We got to remember there is a very strong banking paradigm. We'll just use that one. There's a lot of terms you could give it, that has developed skill to control us and understands quite well what we like and how to sell it, how to keep us doing it, paying for it. We're paying for the new iPhone. We are now digesting it. It's part of who we are. That entity, unfortunately, in 2021, it does exist, and it comes in the face of consumerism. It comes in the face of many different things that seem attractive. What we have to counter that is our peace with nature. If we can connect to that, to me, it's the only solution. You get bombarded so endlessly that everyone eventually gets exhausted by it. You have to have that space where you just can breathe it out. Whether it's you use yoga, whatever you do in your city world or what you do in your farming life, eventually it becomes too much. These are times when you have to be able to do that. And eventually, you go into nature long enough, eventually you're like, I want to protect this forest. Then you hear somebody's going to come and put in a subdivision. So you say to yourself, not on my watch. So you start activating to create some sort of fence to keep that construction company out of there. That's just one example. People become excited because they start realizing, wow, by protecting that forest, the place where I had peace continues to bring peace. And that is far more intoxicating than the flash of all the lights and all the things that come from the consumer world that's on your screen every day, as we live in that paradigm continually, and it becomes a rapid part of who we are. We forget, and you got to continue to remind yourself, you got to go back out there. That's hard for people, especially when you have lockdowns, especially when very oppressive forms happening right now, especially when a lot of your freedoms are getting taken from you. Those are things that keep you out of that natural world. And those are challenges right now for all of us. They're challenges for all of us.
Yeah, and this idea of what you say about isolation, no, about not feeling like happy, not feeling like you're part of something, right? That you're there, you're not part of a whole, because of that lockdown, because of that isolation, because of that disconnection to ourselves, and it's just little ways to. That's why I started to have these conversations with people, because I call them uncomfortable, because a lot of people, they don't understand sometimes the things that we talk about here, or they say, oh no, they're too political, or they're too, or whatever, too controversial, or but I'm like, well, if we don't open up spaces for dialogue, then we will always think that these things are controversial, these things are too political, these things are too environmentalist, pardon me, because there is no spaces for dialogue. Like I had a conversation about suicide and people don't talk about it. And it's like, hey, we are experiencing a lot of loneliness, and we're experiencing a lot of mental health problems because of this paradigm that we're been talking about here. And it's incredible how people don't know how to react to someone that wants to kill themselves, or like, and people are like, no, don't mention, like, it's why it happens, you know, people commit suicide. Hello, we live in the world. So let's talk.
It's happening.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, and let's get uncomfortable.
Let's do talk about it.
Exactly.
Sure.
And
sure.
at least, you know, you can pop in somebody else's mind and say, wow, I have a friend of mine that was going through that same thing, and now I know that I can ask these questions, or that I can call someone, or that I can, you know, provide this type of support. And instead of just saying, oh, no, I don't know what to do, I'm going to freak out. And I was like, okay, see you later. And then I'll meet you in the funeral, right? I mean,
Right.
I'm speaking a very dark mode, but it's important.
Well, the screen culture and the fabricated illusion that goes with that, it asks us, because we're just social animals in the end, to do the same, to keep a veneer, to keep an exterior, to keep a front that looks like, oh, everything is dynamite. I'm doing great today. I had my cup of coffee. I'm off to work. Everybody's great. But truthfully, the whole night was a night of pain, as I again considered ideas. You're bringing a very serious subject to the table that I want to end my life here because I'm so unhappy. But when I come into the workplace, come into the social world, I play the game. That's what we're teaching ourselves to do. You have to have that performance. You can't be who you are. You can't say what you want to say, because it might get somebody in trouble, and you might hurt someone's feelings, or you might be honest. You have to put on that face. And those are some of the tragic fallbacks to me of the digital culture, where you're so much in a performance that, do you forget who you truly are, what you're really here to do? And if you do, where do you get that back? Do you go to a yoga retreat? Do you go to Costa Rica? You probably could go out to a forest for a week and right there realize, oh, whoa, I remember this. I remember this person. Yeah. I remember that water. I remember the sound of those trees. I remember that bird. Okay. And now it starts to make sense. If you do that for years, obviously you can't go back into that world of the screen. I mean, just as an example, Tessie, we don't own a cell phone.
Well, that's great. That's great.
And not because we're somehow revolutionaries, because I don't see how I could use one. I don't need one. So why would I start getting wrapped up in texting people because it seems like it's fun? I got other things I could do with my time than doing that. So it's you manage these tools and you say, all right, that tool I don't need. I'm not a carpenter, so I don't need a hammer. It's that kind of thought process. You look at it more pragmatically versus, oh, I got to have a cell phone because what if I'm not connected? Every time I walk outside and look at the ocean, I'm connected.
Yes. That's what when I travel, I turn off my cell phone and I tell people, I don't exist. Right. I'm not going to be posting. I'm not going to be taking photos. I'm going to be taking photos with my heart. And people are like, what, baby, didn't you not share where you've been? And we want to know your life. You don't want to know my life. Like, deal with your own, you know, like I like to experience my life. I'm not, you know, like this, because then you're like, you become detached and you see your life through the lens of the electronics, that it's like separating even your function, your visual function to you know, just be in the space. It's incredible. And people don't know anymore how to write by hand. It's insane. Like, to the young people that I coach, sometimes like I take them to Prospect Park and say, just sit down, turn off your phones, give them to me and sit down.
Well, it's a good way to hide.
Yeah. And then I'm like, let me know what you hear.
Yeah.
And
for me, for me, I enjoy hiding behind the camera because I'm not as an extrovert. I don't really, on the film, it was actually a good tool for me because I could just film the indigenous people because it was quite intimidating. And so it was nice to be behind the camera, to be involved with showing who they were versus them getting to know who I was. But I mean, eventually we all got to know one another, which was amazing. But I can see why people, you know, when I go for a walk or they're on the beach and they're looking down on their phone, or they're at a restaurant or waiting for somebody, but it's so uncomfortable to sit with their own thoughts now that they have to constantly take up their time looking at something so that they don't feel alone or they don't look stupid, or, you know, I can see that feeling of wanting to hide behind something, because that in the jungle I did it the whole time. It's like, oh, this is an awkward meeting, I'm getting the camera on and I'm hiding behind this. But on the other side, it was just all this beauty that was being created, you know, to show who they are. And so that works for me, but I can see why people do use such a distraction to hide who they are.
No, and it's a work in progress, and it's like, you know, bits by bits, right? Like you can't say to someone like, okay, just throw your phone to the ocean and like forget who you are. But for people that are super immersed, or like for the young people that are very influenced by the social eye, and that their whole self-esteem depends on Instagram, and you know, so you like little by little, like helping them to see that there is a little bit more than meets the eye, that it's okay to sit with uncomfortable sensations and emotions, and break the stigma that of that fake happiness, of that fake enthusiasm, or like, and not that I want for people to be pessimistic or fatalistic, but it's like, okay, well, if you're feeling uncomfortable by turning off your phone and just sitting down with your thoughts, there's something there to explore. You might be feeling that you need something that you're not getting from just distancing yourself. What it is that you're missing? Are you missing comfort? Are you missing joy? Are you missing an activity? What it is that you need, and perhaps we can help you. Perhaps we can engage and create a community where we support one another into embracing those uncomfortable sensations and emotions, and it's okay to just have them and to sit with them and not try to explain them, you know, just.
You can always bring a notebook. Like, oh, this is an awkward situation, I'll take out my notebook.
Exactly. I feel weird. This is not great.
Well, I love that in the city, in the way you're talking, there is a need for these conversations of connection. And when we recognize that across the board, whether it's Schwar or someone in New York, we're all humans. And just like all species that have their groupings, we have to be able to get together and chat and figure out what's the best way to stay connected, stay caught up. Because obviously we're on the internet, so we're not completely divorced from technology. Most of the work we do, we get as filmmakers on the internet. We have to use this tool to get things accomplished. So we're not idiots to say, oh, I refuse to do that. I use gas in my car too, and gas comes from the Amazon eventually. So there's a real honesty, and at times many of us are endlessly hypocritical about our life. We have to accept there's things we do to be here. And I don't know how far you want to go away with that. Seems to me that if you can return to the source, which is nature, as much as possible, and rejuvenate yourself so that you remember why you're here. So these are just tools versus addictions. I would imagine that would be a way in the city. When I've been in cities, that's how I survived it. But I've never been a city guy. I can't say that's my thing. I'm from the country, and I've always been in the country. And big time city. I can handle New York about 8 days. I think that was my max. It was an 8 days of glory, but I only can handle 8 days.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I became a country girl because I've always lived in Mexico City all my life. So it's big, it's polluted, it's noisy, it's chaotic, no structure, no system.
But that food is amazing.
The food.
It works.
Food. Mole and all that. Wow.
Oh yeah, the food is great.
I went to the dump once in Mexico City with some Hare Krishnas once on a dump run, and that was one of the craziest, most surreal massive, like, oh my God, that's a lot, like just miles of trash, miles, acreage of pollution. It really changed my life. I really felt like, wow, this is what humans can do. You know, that was 20 years ago. I can only imagine what that dump looks like now. I'm just continued to grow, I'm sure. But I always wonder when I'm on the planet and I see pollution, I see trash. Okay, I think one little small dump in this town, Mexico City, Tokyo, New York. Just imagine all of the trash that our consumption is creating. You know, it's a kind of a different subject, but in the end, we kind of have a little bit of a consumption issue. And it's very rarely discussed. It's right now, it's global warming, and you know, that's something, but we have a very reckless and very aggressive consumption issue in this planet that's caught on. Totalitarian capitalism, to quote from Chris Hedges, is this kind of consumption where we don't think about it at all. We just buy it. And the packaging that goes with it, we just chuck it out. During COVID, you couldn't open your restaurant, so we just had delivery packaging going on. We're kind of out of control. And in the ecology of the Shuar and the Amazon, the base conversation is still the planet's survivable future. If we're consuming at this rate, we have to somehow educate folks in the Western world. Listen, the Amazon is taking a hit from all of our consumption. It's now being seen. What these resources are being raped out of there. They're being taken in at a major pace. Jair Bolsonaro's effort in Brazil, this bill 409 that basically allows them to kill indigenous who protest against their industrialism. What we're seeing with China buying up parts of the Ucini and the Amazon here in Ecuador. These are aggressive industrialists that are taking it to the next level. And that will affect our lives. All of us that live here want our piece of the dream, no matter how you look at it. That right there is a significant strike against our survival. Somehow, if we can create this enthusiasm for spirit and the interest in nature, combined with the pragmatics of slowing down the consumption. This, of course, is not popular with the bankers because they want more consumption. They want you to buy. They want Jeff Bezos types to get richer and richer. They want to ship. And then we have to tell ourselves, how do we intelligently have a platform where we can show folks, consume less, tap into nature more, find out who you are, and do all that at the most excessive technological point in the human history. How do we do that?
Yeah.
Tell us how.
I think it's one of the flickers in my brain.
Yeah. But it's great, you know, it's great. I think that these conversations are, you know, like they're really needed. And some people, it will make their brains a little, at least, you know, shift a little. And, you know, if I think that if it starts by a person, and then that person makes another person reflect, and then that other person makes another person reflect, then at least we can start building a little bit more of a collective consciousness for what it really could save us and the planet at the same time, right? So, but
well, can I say one thing? We are Fagata at FagataFilms.com. Fagata at FagataFilms.com.
Yes.
So we're available. We always encourage, and we've had for 6 years we had a hostel with a farm. So we had lots of travelers that came and saw us. We always encourage that. People are always welcome to tap into our world. We have nothing to hide, and we're excited to share it. We can easily get you out to the Shuar to see Luis and his people if you want. I'd be happy to facilitate that. So if people have that interest, please reach out to us. And then our film is Shuar, Sendero de Vida. We'll continue pushing it through film festivals for the rest of this year, and then try to find a platform for it. When I do, I'll keep you informed. Is that cool?
yes, please keep me posted, and I will share also your handles and the information about the title of the film in the when I share this conversation. And of course, yeah, thank you so much. I might, even like take your word and go visit you and learn. Yeah, why not?
You speak the language, you'd love it.
You would love it.
This is a very unique country. It's very diverse. It's small in actual size, but it's got, the Amazon. It's got we have the tallest volcano in the world in Ecuador, Chimborazo. Then you have these coastal ranges that are very interesting. There's other indigenous populations there. And then you have a very unique coastline that goes from Colombia all the way to Peru. Desert coastline and jungle coastline. It's an incredibly diverse place. In all of those regions, there's indigenous populations, especially in the mountains, the Quechua, and especially in the Amazon, where you have the Shuar, Ashwar, Sapporo, Harani, Ashwar, all sorts of indigenous populations that are in some places incredibly remote, and they're fighting the grassroots battle. They're the ones fighting the grassroots battle. The rest of us are watching it on TV. Even Loni and I are not even close to putting in the time required to protect their forests like these indigenous populations are. And frankly, they have no resources. The government's forgotten about them. What a shock. They're there at the last stand, literally. They are standing rock in the Amazon. They are the ones that are holding down the water, and holding down the trees, and saying, hey man, please someone come to our aid, because these jerks are coming full frontal to get our stuff and sell it.
Yeah.
It's that basic. So the more enthusiastic we can get people to come down here and try to be a part of this, and that's when cameras become useful, bringing that information back and showing people, look what I saw. This is what I saw. This is the oil basin. We've seen things that make your skin fall off your body. They're just like, what? That's how they do that? How do they do that? How can they get away with that insanity? and you realize they can because no one knows.
Yeah.
No one knows. What? This didn't happen? I mean, it's just absurd. Some of the ridiculous decisions that are made to hide slug oil, for example. It's absurd. And if we can get a few people, I don't care if people hate my film. All I care is they talk about it.
Yes, exactly.
I could care less. I don't care if they hate me. That's fine. Hate me all day. But talk about it. Talk about it. And then maybe you'll talk about your forest. Maybe you'll talk about your neighborhood and go, maybe we should keep that lake clean after all. I used to swim in that thing. Maybe people will incentivize this to their own life. They don't have to come to the Amazon to be activists. Just go out and do your nature, get connected, and start realizing that you're not here to get rich. You're here to have the wealth of the spirit. A little money helps, and you'll get it, but you are here to have the wealth of the spirit. Then you protect her, and then you protect her, you take a whole new journey with your life, and fulfillment becomes part of it. The spiritual experience starts to happen all the time, and suddenly your priorities are changing, and suddenly you aren't depressed anymore, and suddenly you have a vitality, you don't need to sleep, and suddenly you're happy again, and you have good relationships, and your job gets better. I mean, I'm being a bit utopian, but it's not that far off. Nature's the cure for all those pills you're taking.
Yeah. I completely second that opinion, and I agree, and I applaud that you're doing this and that you're bringing this awareness to people. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, because it for me it means a lot. Coming also from a country that also suffers a lot from the destruction of nature, and I think it's we can all get together and do something better. So thank you so much for bringing that awareness, and thank you so much for your time and for your kindness to have this conversation with me and to follow through as well. Like, I appreciate so much that
we fought for it, didn't we?
We finally made it happen. Like, after so many things that happened.
We appreciate Liftoff. You guys your forum really enables, I think, people that need to be heard. Even if our project isn't as good as something that Quentin Tarantino did or something, we're still trying, and our efforts are still something that is authentic. And for heaven's sakes, that's what you're supposed to do on the planet. You're supposed to be authentic. So I hope we can get this message to folks. And I hope people like yourself, obviously, who have this interest in something greater, will do something. Will reach out to us or create something themselves. This is the time to do it. The planet needs you. You've never been more needed than now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you This one of my favorite conversations. It's so rich, so.
You should come see us. You should totally come visit. Come visit.
I will. I will.
Yeah, you totally should. You're more than welcome in that. Most people, they say they're going to come, don't, because they do realize that we don't have a spa and health club here. we live in our tent, so you better want that. It's not, we're cooking over fire. So
yeah, I like that.
We cook over fire, right? So
I'm really curious about learning and about, yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And
you too.
And we'll keep on chatting. I hope to talk to you more.
Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah. We are always welcome. It's easy to get hold of us, and our life is raising our kid and doing these jobs. So we do have a different schedule than everybody else, in that we have a lot of free time, which is something we work very hard to create. So there is rewards. There is rewards.
Absolutely.
Well, good seeing you.
Okay. Well, take care.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.